You're my 44th interview in this series, and it's been a really cool experience to get to know people and kind of piece together their stories. And so I'd like to start kind of with your swimming story. Can you tell me about how you got started in the sport of swimming?
So it's really funny because my parents were never swimmers. They weren't even close. My dad was a hockey player. He played for Calvin College in Grand Rapids for 3 years, and he still plays hockey today. And my mom was a competitive horse rider. Like, she jumped the barrels and like all of that type of stuff. But they got my brother Parker and my sister Danny into swimming, and they're just like, oh, we might as well just throw the third one in there, which was me. So, but then later on, when you're like really young, you do like those rec sports of like baseball, soccer, and all that, which I started doing that. But then my parents realized that I would have more potential in swimming than I would in baseball or soccer, and I didn't see that. But my parents did, and it's like, no, I don't want to do swimming. I like to be outside and all that. But yeah, that's how I got into swimming. But I'm kind of glad they got me into swimming, because if I wasn't into swimming and playing other sports, I don't know where I would be today.
Obviously, I picked up on Parker's success, and he was a state champion, right? He won some things as well. Do you think that helped in your parents kind of recognizing your talent maybe before you did, that they could kind of compare you a little bit to your sibling that had come through?
I think they compared him and I together, like as a team, but I didn't really compare us together because we kind of swam the same events. He was more like a 200 and a 500 freestyle. But as I developed, I became more of a 1000er and a miler. Well, then that shortly didn't last that. It only lasted probably all the way up to my senior year. But they compared us So.
Tell me about how having two other swimmers in your family, a brother that, was highly successful and won state championships. How did that kind of lead your path in the sport? Did that benefit you, that you were able to kind of watch a sibling be successful?
Yeah, it was really helpful watching him be successful, because I remember watching him win his first title, which is, I think it was either the 200 free or the 500 free, because I know the 500 free he won all 4 of his years. I think that was one of his first ones that he won. And when he won that, I'm just like, that's what I want to do. I want to win a state title. But then for my sister, I really didn't watch my sister swim that much. But it's just Parker, Parker really paved the way for me. And like I looked up to him, which as a younger brother, you kind of always look up to your older brother or older sister. I just looked up to Parker because he was just really successful in high school swimming, and that's what I wanted to be.
500 free, 2012, 441. Does that sound right?
That probably sounds right.
That was it. So tell me about yourself. How about that first breakthrough for you? When did you start to realize I can be good at this too?
Ooh. I think my first real breakthrough is when I swam the 1500 long course for the first time at like the Jaws invite at the Jennison pool. I swam at a speed of, I think I was around 13 or 14, somewhere around there. That's when I started to develop the mile and stuff. And I didn't really want to swim it. I told my coach, oh, I want to get out of this. And I just hate swimming long events. But I posted up a really good time. I forget what the time is. But my coach is just like, if you keep this up and you like train this hard and you're like going this fast to meet in just a Speedo, wait till you actually put a tech suit on when you get older and when you like get more developed into the event and learn how to swim it. So I think that was one of my most breakthrough moments when I was a younger kid.
How about, obviously you described, the first time you swam the mile, you weren't head over heels to do it. You're trying to get out of the race, but, you kind of figure out that, I can do this and that I'm good at it. How did the kind of affinity for distance training and distance racing develop for you? Was that something, you know, obviously it wasn't immediately natural as you just described, but did you kind of eventually give into that and recognize this is where I can be really good? How did that develop for you?
Well, every time I swam it, I always dropped time, which I was just like, every time I swim it, I drop time. I'm just like, well, if I keep doing this, I might as well just keep swimming it and keep practicing it, because obviously a swimmer likes to drop time. Like, that's the best feeling. And so I just really got into it. Like, I would drop 20 seconds here, 40 seconds here, 5 seconds here. I'm just like dropping like these huge amounts times. So
tell me about the age that this is happening at, where these mile drops are happening. Is this around like 13, 14, pre-high school? When is that kind of happening that you're describing?
this was probably a little like maybe a year and a half, like before high school and a little into high school. Because I remember one of my coaches, his name was Troy Emmons. He was a coach on the east side, and he came over to coach MLA for a little bit. He was the one that like really got me into distance swimming and like really making me do like these practices and stuff. And then it transitioned over to Tom Katisha. I think he's a coach now in Ohio. And he would always make me do these sets where it was like 9 300s long course and 9 200s and 9 100s. It was just like a crazy, I think a 5,400 yard or meter set. We did it like yards and meters. And I would always do mile pace. And every time I would swim it, like, I just remember like going to a meet and I was seated with like a 16:09 or something. This was my first juniors in Atlanta at the Georgia Tech pool. And then I swim it in the afternoon, and my coach just has his hands on his head like, oh my gosh, this kid's going. I didn't know what he was saying or like what his reaction was like. So, but then I dropped to 15:28. I'm just like, my coach is just like, are you kidding me? You just dropped like 30 seconds, and that's just crazy. He was just like, yeah, it was just crazy for me to drop like that much time. So
yeah. That's awesome. I mean, it had to be a spark for you, I'm sure. Tell me about your priorities at that point in your life when you're like 14, 15 and you're moving into your freshman year. You know, obviously you said that, you know, you wanted to emulate your brother, you wanted to be a successful high school swimmer, but nearly everybody that I've talked to in the last 10 to 20 years, it's been clear in these conversations that the swimmer who prioritized high school swimming was few and far between, and that for most kids, it was a balance between their club work and their high school work. Tell me about how you trained at that time and kind of what your priorities were at that time.
So when I was in middle school, I had like middle school practices, and then I would do like the full, I think it was like full 2 hours. And once I was done with that, because we went from 3 to 5, and then I jumped over to MLA practices that was they started at 4:30 to 6:30. So I'd basically do like 3.5 hours of training, and that was like my priority, because as a distance swimmer, you want to get yards in, and that's what I was wanting to do. But then I prioritized swimming over school. And I think that was kind of hard for me because I struggled in school when I was in middle school. And I wish I had a balance of that, of school and swimming. But I think right now I have probably the most balance of school and swimming that I've ever had.
How did you arrive at that? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. How did you arrive at that? Was that something an evolution that started in high school, or is that something that's kind of happened for you at Queens?
I started developing it a little bit in high school, because in high school, like, I'm just like, oh my gosh, senior year, and it's like, I just want to graduate. I don't want to do homework and all that. But once I got to Queens, then you really have to prioritize that, because then, like, I would have probably like either between 1 and 3 classes a day, not every day, but then I have to put swimming on top of that with doing homework at night times. And I think it really prioritized me at Queens. It developed more at Queens than it's ever had. So
what do you think made you successful as a swimmer today? And I'm sure it's kind of evolved, but what are the characteristics that, and some could be personality and some could be kind of intrinsic, some could be physical. What are the characteristics that you think helped make you successful as a swimmer?
I think the most of it is my parents, because with their help, I don't know where I'd be today. Like them driving me to practice and picking me up from practice, feeding me, taking me to big meets, all these club meets, and then meets in Ohio and then Minneapolis and all those meets. I mean, I can't take it all, but I think the majority of it is just my parents. And then another little part is my coaches, guiding me into the right direction. And then my teammates is another part, like them, for now in college, they help you with you have in college, you have classes with swimmers and all that. And they help you in class, but then once you get into the pool, then they really help you there. So
how about that training environment? You stayed with MLA all the way through?
All the way through high school?
Yeah, did you stay with MLA?
Yeah, I stayed with MLA all the way through high school, and then when I come home for Christmas break, Thanksgiving, summertime. But last summer, my summer going into my sophomore year, I stayed down at Queens to train for the U.S. Nationals. Yeah. That was the only time I was away from MLA.
But being able to go back and think about that mid, 2010s training environment, looking at the kids that have come through there, I mean, the Mosses and people that have come over, even, seeing Devin Nowicki training over there now, and just such a really competitive training environment. That's kind of what you I would imagine, just in the years that you swam, you probably saw a lot of guys like Kyle Moss and some of those guys, I would imagine. That had to be a really good training environment and situation for you.
Yeah, it's when I go home, I just know it's going to be really good training because of Kyle. I think Kyle is the one that really pushes me in practice, because I always try to beat him in IM and back sets, and then he always tries to beat me in freestyle sets. But when I go home, it's just the practices are just really fun with MLA. And sometimes I do miss it when I'm down here at Queens, but I know I get a chance in the summer times when I go back down.
I hear Derek is coming fast.
Yeah, Derek is coming fast.
That's what I've heard. I've talked to a few people, and I get the feeling that he's ready to explode when everybody gets to see him again. But that's really cool, and it's cool for me as a guy that grew up in Battle Creek, Michigan, to see a strong program develop on the west side. I started with WMS, I think that, around the 2000s or whatever, and then eventually to see MLA develop. It's really cool for me as a West Sider, not just to see a program develop, but guys like you, guys like the Mosses, and guys that are choosing to now train on the West Side, like Nowicki, that, have kind of crossed over from the East Side to the West Side. I just think it's great to see, that spark in the sport throughout the state. And doing this project that I've done, you really see the overwhelming success that the East Side of the state had in the history of Michigan swimming. So it's really cool for me to talk to guys like you and Derek, and that have gone through that experience on the West Side and been successful. So you mentioned, you wanted to be like your brother, you wanted to be a successful high school swimmer, and I see that first state championship for you in 2016. I think you went about 4:31 to do it. What did that mean to you, that first time, to kind of be able to say, I did something that my brother did and accomplish that?
It meant a lot to me, because that was it's obviously my first state title as swimming for HC for a while. And my freshman year, I really wanted to win it because then if I would have won it, then Parker and I would have gotten the 500 for 8 years, but that didn't work out. So my sophomore year, then I was determined to win it. But then my coach was just like, "Have you ever taken a look at the D3 state record?" It's like, "No, I don't look at those. I don't know why." But he's like, "I think you need to start looking at those because you're getting pretty close to what the times are." It's like, "Okay, fine. I'll go look at it." I go look at it that night, and the time before it's like a 4:33. I forget what the guy's name that had it before, but like he was just like, "Okay." He's like, "You can potentially get this record." So I'm like, "Okay, I'll train for it." Then he like just really started hitting me hard with just like pace sets almost every, like Todd would give me sets that were just like, he'd give me like 20 50s on 40 holding 500 pace like almost every single day. Then we would do this set called the revolvers and he would have me swim that. It was just, he was determined for me to get it. So when I got it, I was like, when I was swimming, I'm just like, okay, I'm only going to get it by like a half a second or so. But when I went 4:31 and got it by 2 seconds, I'm just like, holy cow. But then once I got that, then I knew that I can just get faster from there. But just winning the state title for my first time was was like an accomplishment that I've always wanted in high school swimming and follow my brother's footsteps.
I wasn't too far off. I just had the wrong Alma guy. I think it was probably John Frudiger, 4:32.80 in 2007. Sounds familiar. So, yeah. So you get that first, state record and first state title together. And then I think the following year you get both, right? The 200 and the 500 in 17.
Rudy and I both got it my junior year, but he beat me, so he would get it. But we technically both broke it at the same time. So.
How did that sit with you? Swimming well but not winning.
And it was a little frustrating. It was like I think I went like 1:38.6 on Friday for the prelims, and it's like, okay, that felt really good. I feel like I can go like a 1:37, maybe even a 1:36. But then when I came Saturday and I went at 1:38.1, it's like how this like 200 like really hurt. And it's like because I was just a little confused on why that hurt more. And I went less than a second faster, but it didn't. It kind of sat well with me, like not too bad, but I was a little frustrated because I remember Rudy transferred over for his senior year, and I didn't know that until like around probably maybe a couple of days before conference. I didn't know that he transferred over, so I was just like, if I knew that he transferred over sooner, then I feel like I should have trained a lot harder.
That's an interesting lesson to learn at that point in your career. How did that fuel you going into that, that senior year? I'm sure, you had not at that point won both races, right? And you're finally able to do that. Looks like your senior year, you put that 1:37 together and you're able to do that. But how did that kind of disappointment fuel you?
It fueled me a lot. Like I would talk to Todd about it. Like I want to do pace. Like when I feel like I need to do pace sets, I do pace sets that day. And I did my senior year. I basically just did 200 and 500 pace sets, like every single day. And I would do like these monster kick sets because I really wanted the 200 free because I know Parker's won it 3 times and I haven't won it yet. And I had one more chance. I didn't want to blow this last chance to get the 200 free. So it like really fueled me inside, and that I just let it all out at finals on that Saturday.
And tell me about what else is going on kind of nationally at this point for you in terms of national meets and whatnot. You talked about that big junior national breakthrough going 15:28, and that probably was kind of a coming out party for you in terms of the national scene, where you jump from 16 plus under 1530. Now you're really in the show, right? You know, like how did your national experiences kind of advance after going 1528?
It made me open up my eyes to broader my knowledge, because I needed to know more about swimming, change my diet here and there, know what to eat before. Like when I'm on taper, nowadays on taper that I learned throughout high school, that I lean away towards red meat. Like when it's taper time, then I go to more like pork chops, chicken, pasta, and I put in more greens in there. Because I kind of learned that from Tom Katisha, which in the mornings for like breakfast, I would get like eggs, bacon, and like all this stuff that I shouldn't eat. He's just like, after this meat, you need to know what you eat and learn what you eat, so that you have an idea of like how your body feels in the water. So that's when I went that 1528, then I had to open up my eyes to learn more before swimming and how to become better.
Well, I think you just taught me something. One of my best friends broke the Mid-American Conference record in the 100 freestyle back in 1996, 95, and then ate a huge steak in between prelims and finals and came back and swam terribly in finals. And I've always wondered what happened to him, and I think you might have just put me on.
Because I was always taught that eating red meat gains weight, and when you're on taper, you don't want to gain weight. You want to stay where you're at, because then you know how your body feels in the water, and that's what Tom and my mom have taught me.
Yeah. I needed that advice about 25, 30 years ago. I wish you'd have been around to teach me. You know, Skyler, there's no good time to talk about this, but it's something I obviously really wanted to touch on. Is, you know, you grew up swimming at Holland Christian with Ian Miskelli, who we lost a few weeks ago, and I did not know Ian. You know, followed his career like a lot of Michigan swimmers, but in reading the outpouring of support, I found myself going down that Twitter wormhole and reading a lot of comments and reading, you know, a lot of the, from a lot of his teammates and people that were close with him. And it just seemed like he was a really, really good kid. And I'm curious to hear from, you know, probably his most successful high school teammate, you know, and I assume you guys knew each other very well. Tell me about Ian and your relationship with him.
Ian and I, like, I think we swam together for around 10 years or so, because I think he started when he was 6 or 7, and I started when I was like 5. So we were like swimming at like the same age, and like just growing up with him it was always just fun growing up with him, because he was always funny. It was just fun to hang around with. I would always, like in the winter times, I would go to his house and we would just go ice skating on the pond and all that. We would hang out downstairs playing Xbox and play with his dog all the time. And like once we started growing up, then our friendship developed, and like when we were in like towards the end of like almost graduating high school or our senior year, he just felt like a little brother to me that I never had. And like when you have friendships like that, you always have like a rocky part in the relationship, like that's normal. And sometimes we just wouldn't talk to each other, but I wish I could talk to him more. I wish I could have talked to him more, but I don't have the chance to anymore. But we would always swim the same events, and like we were swimming almost every single event. We would swim together in the same heat, which was like really fun. We would always like have a fun time doing it, laugh together, joke around with each other. And then once we went off to college, and we didn't really talk that much. We would only talk when he would come, when we both were home for like Thanksgiving, Christmas. I just wish that we stayed in touch more. And I didn't know that all that he was going through at Michigan. I didn't know that because no one told me. And that's what like really frustrates me, is that I have friends at Michigan that don't tell me anything. And it's like, if you would have told me this a lot like sooner when you guys were there, I would have gotten in contact with him. But none of my friends at Michigan tell me anything. But I just really miss him. Like, I was talking to my girlfriend about it. Like I was talking over his Snapchat with her, and I just started crying because he just meant a lot to me. And I don't know. I just can't believe he's gone, but I just know he's in a better place, pain-free and all that. So.
Well, I really appreciate you, even saying what you just said. I mean, there was a lot of content there, and I'm not gonna pursue that too much with you and get make you pull all that stuff back up. But I think it's really important, some of the things that you said there, and I think anybody that loses somebody that way has regrets about what they didn't do or the contact that they didn't keep. And
yeah.
the one thing I would tell you is I certainly gathered in a lot of the feedback, just in reading, I don't think anybody knew like that, and so I hope you can take it easy on yourself a little bit. I read his last Instagram post was very upbeat, positive, right? And so I don't think all the signs were necessarily there from somebody who was at a distance. So I hope that's something that you can, as time goes, that you can manage and recognize that, that wasn't you, obviously, and I know a lot of close friends are going to feel like, what could I have done? But,
Yeah. Not many people know, like, when I have people that pass away that are very close to me, I like to give them something. So Ian and I's senior year at Akron, our sectionals where we won, MLA won sectionals for the first time. We won, I think the last relay that we swam together that we won was the 400 free relay. I think it was me, Ian, Kyle, and then Julian Barrows. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but that medal that we won our senior year, I gave it to him because not many people know that I do stuff like that. It's just something that I like to give people that they'll have forever. So.